Hi, so I made a game for GMTK Game Jam 2024. A game jam is something like a creator contest, but usually the given time is extremely short. In this case, right after the theme announcement, participants had to make a game in 4 days. And this video covers how I made my submission, Get Some Helium within that time frame. Get Some Helium is a Sokoban-like puzzle game where you inflate the balloon to solve problems. You can play the game on your PC by clicking the link in the description. I recommend to play it first before watching the video. So, I have participated in 2 previous GMTK game jams, and these were score chasers. While I'm happy with what I made, I wanted to create something that is not a score chaser and something that has more depth. The 48-hour limit in 2 previous jams was too short for that, but this time the limit is 96 hours. Since I'm not best at making stuff, it was a welcoming change to me. Anyway, the theme announcement was at 2 AM in my time zone. I knew that I wouldn't be able to sleep after the theme announcement because I get too excited thinking about what should I make. So I went to bed early this time. And I failed. I woke up at exactly 2 AM and saw what the theme was, and it was built to scale. At one point, balloons came into my mind. Since it can inflate or shrink in real life, it would be an intuitive way to represent scaling. My first idea was to play as a balloon in a platformer game. You can use air as fuel to fly, and smaller balloons would be able to go through narrow gaps. However, it didn't feel like it had a lot of depth. The second idea was to make a puzzle game with balloon scaling. You can inflate yourself while you are touching an air tank, but only when it's not obstructed by walls. Now this was the idea I could work on. It was pretty simple on the surface, but there were a lot of possibilities with this idea. And then I was able to sleep. It was 4 AM at the time. After waking up, I started by coding the balloons. One balloon could be represented by a set of blocks. If one of the arrow keys is pressed, first it would check if the wall is on the way by shooting rays from all blocks' position. When one of the rays touches a wall, the wall balloon won't be able to move. On the other hand, if one of the rays touches another balloon, as known as another set of blocks, it will trigger another collision check from that balloon. A funny bug I got during the development is that if the 2 balloons were arranged like this, it would crash the game. That's because this arrangement creates an infinite loop of collision checking. So I solved this by adding an exclude list. If a red balloon touches a blue balloon, red adds itself to the exclude list of blue's collision check. Since red is in the list, blue will ignore the collision with red, so there's no infinity loop now. Scaling the balloon was much simpler than the movement. All I had to do was check if the balloon was touching the air tank and do another check to see if the target cells were already occupied. Now with all of those mechanics, I was ready for the next day. Now I decided to add some basic visuals to the mechanics. Before actually decorating, I made a draft for visuals in Geometry Dash. Yeah, seriously. In this game, the movements are expressed with triggers. Those triggers helped me visualize the motions I wanted while putting minimal effort. Also, changing the colors is easy, so I could test out different colors and see if it works or not. For the visual itself, I went with this RGB color scheme, blue being the main color. I made cloud blocks with particles and the background with some cloud objects and star particles. Finally, I added sparkles and balloon decorations to fill in empty spaces. You can look at the draft yourself by searching this ID on the screen. After applying some of the visuals in that GD level, the game was at least watchable. However, there was a major problem with this game, that it was not scalable. In the current version, a balloon is saved as one scene. This means if I wanted to make a balloon with a different shape, I would have to make an entirely different scene. So I changed the parent balloon node to a tile map and added the balloon block in the scene collection. Now making a balloon shape was as simple as clicking a tile. Also, this came with the bonus effect of reducing the code required for spawning blocks. Now that the mechanics and basic visuals were working, it was time for the level design. From now on, there will be spoilers for the solutions of some puzzles. If you can't play the game now but willing to play it, you can skip to the timestamps shown on the screen. So this game can be divided into 3 parts. The first part introduces the mechanic: tanks, checkmark tiles, walls being used as blockades, all the basic stuff. The second part involves touching multiple tanks at once. And the final part introduces another pushable balloon. Since I had little time to design all those levels, the puzzle design is not something too great, but some of the levels were pretty good. Level 3 looks simple, yet it involves a little fake out. This level is meant to teach players that you don't have to fit in those tiles exactly, and I think it does a good job at that. Level 5 looks suspicious. While it could have looked simpler visually, I thought the underlying solution of using a tank 2 times was very clever. Level 15 is the hardest one in this game, and is also my favorite one here. The main idea is to find a shape that can navigate through this snake passage, and the solution here is elegantly simple. Of course, not every level takes the cake, and there were some worse levels like level 9 and 13. But the concepts in these levels were pretty funny, so I put them in anyway. And while I was testing levels myself, I found this restart related bug. This bug would cause softlock, so I knew I must fix it. And the fix was waiting for a process frame. It felt strange, but it kinda worked for me anyway, so I just moved on. Also, I got another bug by spamming movement keys. To fix this, instead of tweening the position, I had to change the position instantly. To hide that instant movement, I added a tween to move the sprite of balloon blocks. Honestly, I should have done this from the start, but anyway, the movement was no longer jank. After making this game so far, I submitted this version to the game jam and asked for some playtesters. And guess what? Wait, didn't I fix that? Apparently my fix to the restart bug was very inconsistent. So instead of reloading a scene to restart, I made a dummy scene. Whenever the restart happens, you are sent to the dummy scene for 0.1 seconds and warp back to the main scene. That fix was so funny, but it works for real this time. It literally saved my game from getting top 90% in terms of enjoyment, so huge thanks to those playtesters. On the final day, polishing was pretty much everything left. There was not much thought process on that day, so I'll just list what I did. For visuals, I added a proper face for balloons, a background, and decorations from the draft earlier. For functionality, I made holding a key move the balloon consecutively and added a title screen. Finally, to match the balloon theme, I made this restart and transition effect. I expected the last day to be very busy at the start, but surprisingly it went pretty smoothly unlike the previous 2 GMTK jams. I submitted my final version of the entry 2 hours before the deadline, and the game was done. So that was Get Some Helium. While there were some flaws with this game, like the lack of an options menu and the game being harder than I intended, I think this is my best game jam entry so far. Thanks to people who left genuine feedback in the comments and Mark for hosting this game jam. By the way, I usually upload dev commentary videos for things I create in Geometry Dash or other game engines. If you find that interesting, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.